subjectively, everybody's life is difficult to them. But grand scheme of things, of course, you are able to kind of, zoom out and see what it is. So that on an occasion when my brain is working very overdrive in self-hatred mode, that can also then be a thing that I flip on myself where I'm just like, I'm not even like in a tough spot.
Yeah, you're like, that's interesting. Yeah, that just turns into, you fucking ungrateful piece of shit.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yes or no? Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
I am deeply sorry for my irresponsible and selfish behavior I engaged in.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Oops, the podcast. We have Ryan Lynch sitting here.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Julia.
We have a sophomore appearance today.
Yeah.
Part of an illustrious group on this podcast. People who have graced us multiple times. Some notable names on that list, like, I don't know, Danny Palmer.
Okay, good. Yeah. Chill.
Not to make fun of you. Expected me to say somebody much more accredited.
No,
there.
I thought it was going to be somebody available.
This just turned into an unnecessary roast of Danny. But we have Mike Cannon here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Sat next to the most Aryan man in America.
This
is something.
I've done that before.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, you're just straight out of the presses white. Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. Like just pure as the driven snow.
Yes, he is.
Certainly.
Does that bother you? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sure you get it a lot.
No.
Okay, good.
No one says that.
Nobody.
This reaction is not him being upset. It's just a very Lynch reaction.
Yeah,
you know that you do
youth.
that?
What?
You do. So if you were to be like, yeah, like Ryan, haha, you do this or whatever, you kind of go like,
yeah. It's
look
an
away,
effective
you look-
kryptonite for comedians because I've never felt closer to punching somebody I just met
Yeah.
than that moment.
Lynch icing you, dude.
Yeah, it's just kind of like not knowing how to react
Totally.
to anything in general.
Totally.
So in order to make you feel not as uncomfortable as I am, I'm just going to like dip on the eye contact. I'm out.
See, I love that as an explanation, and I wish that more people were as upfront as you about it, because the idea that you are actually insecure doesn't read. It reads like you got it all figured out, and I'm a dipshit on your planet.
I'm not white. No, we're on the same page.
All right, cool.
Lynch is a great guy. He really is one of the best. He's one of the best guys I know.
He's a lot of warmth and good energy coming off of him.
Yeah, and I don't toss that around
Thank
lightly.
you.
Bro. And it's funny because I know people who do toss that around. They go, so-and-so is one of the best people I've ever met.
Oof, yeah.
And I'm like, okay. But then I'll hear them say it about, success at like other people. And
Totally.
I'm like, oh, you just throw that around.
Yeah, I think that's also
Thanks,
like an
G.
insane thing to throw around.
Yeah.
Because it really does. It shows you who you are. Like if you're
100%.
like co-signing this guy as a legitimate great dude, and then he goes on to do some snake shit, I'm
totally.
looking at you different.
I do, absolutely. And it doesn't even have to be that extreme. Like,
No.
When I see somebody say so-and-so is one of the best people I've ever met, I'm like, okay, they're fine.
Yeah.
But like when I hear someone say that and use it, like misuse it, I think they're unsophisticated.
People throw that shit around like English people throw brilliant around.
Exactly.
Where it's like, listen, here it means more. It just carries more weight, dude. You can't just willy-nilly toss brilliant at me because I'm going to start gaining a self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. 100%. Yeah, dude. So anyway, be careful with the way you use your superlatives, people. We are watching and judging. Okay? That is the truth. Dude, well, Mike, good to have you on the show, man.
Great to be here, man.
Known you a long time.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Al Martin.
I know,
I was
yeah.
thinking about you during that time.
It's so funny because me and DeStefano were talking about it, and everybody has a complicated relationship with where they started in whatever industry, right?
Totally.
So my relationship with Al is both positive, negative, all the things, because I was a young upstart comic. I'm sure I was frustrating to him as he was frustrating to me. It's the same thing, but it feels like, I told DeStefano, I was like, it's almost like the vampire that bit us died. You know what I mean? The guy that turned us into a vampire ourselves is now gone, and we have to forge ahead and create new vampires.
That is great, dude. Okay, so to give everybody a little bit of backstory here. So first of all, Al Martin owned this kind of chain of comedy clubs. Broadway Comedy Club is one of them. Another one is called Greenwich Village Comedy Club.
Yeah.
He used to own another one. But anyway, so these were like the two clubs he owned. DiStefano's Chris DiStefano.
Yes.
Have we had a Chris? I don't know if we. No, I don't think we have actually. But anyway, old friend of ours, very good friend of yours.
Yeah.
And so Al owned these comedy clubs, and a lot of us was like the first place that we were able to perform on real shows.
Totally.
So this is where I think this comes in. So sometimes people have had sort of complicated relationships with that, the fact that it was the first. So they'll let you get on pro shows, but maybe like, you might not have been ready to be doing pro shows. So maybe you might not be getting paid, whatever. And at some point, maybe you'd hit a point where you felt like you should be getting paid for these shows. And that's maybe where the problem could set in.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was a little bit different in the sense that I both worked for the club and was an early comedian. So I barked, which means I handed out flyers in Times Square for the World for Aaron Haber. Yes, I'm sure he's out there somewhere destroying another city's scene. But so yeah, I barked, I answered phones, I sat people, and I was like, I kind of just did odd work around Broadway Comedy Club just to get up both at the World and then downstairs. So there were some things where, like, you know, my things were being taken advantage of, or I didn't do this or whatever, things that were expected. It again, complicated, didn't matter, but still I hold a really close part in my heart of him because, you know, he is where I started. That's where we all started and met.
Right.
I mean, we did prom shows, dude.
You and I, and we did. Yeah, that is something I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But you know, I hold Al in high regard. You know, rest in peace. And I always thought he was a nice guy. I liked him.
Yeah.
You know.
He wrote me a bunch of really angry all caps emails.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I don't know. I don't really remember. It was something related, I'm sure. And I'm sure not even the real information was relayed to him, so it's not even his fault. You know.
Okay. But like, true. It's an interesting thing. This is a very random industry in that there just kind of isn't a path, like a specific path that it's like, do this, this, and this. And you'll be able to do this. It's just it's murkier inevitably. Even if you do follow some sort of template, like nobody's story is the same.
No, especially back then. At least now, because it's taken on the identity of a feasible career path. Like, people get out of college and they're like, maybe I'll be a content creator. Maybe I'll do comedy. Like, there's more ways and avenues to make money.
Totally.
So it's like people are just jumping on social media.
Right.
They do this. It's like whatever kind of career you want, there's somewhat of at least a dirt path. To follow, where with us, we were just spraying buckshots.
Oh, totally.
It was a nightmare.
And the ways of like sort of overcoming that were a little more well known once you knew the necessary information.
Yeah.
Meaning there were specific things you could do that would lead you to the next level. However, that next level still wasn't necessarily that illustrious.
No.
There's a lot more like... There's a big class of like private jet comics who are not household names, which is new.
I know. Yeah.
There were not a lot of comics flying on private jets when we started comedy.
No. But this is my theory about the whole thing, right? Is I think comedy is in its Mason P. Diddy era, where like now
Explain that to me. Mason P. Diddy?
Yes.
What's that?
Or Mace and
P. Diddy.
I was like, who is Mason P. Diddy? Who the fuck is
Mason P. Diddy?
That was his second assistant after Farnsworth Bentley.
Mason P. Diddy, dude, that dog. Okay, Mace and P. Diddy.
P. Diddy phase, in the sense that that's when rap became mainstream, right? Like, so hip hop in general was like a subculture that was bubbling, and it had pretty much national interest, but still was kind of like a lower tier in terms of entertainment and music. Once Mason P. Diddy came out, it had this big explosion. They're wearing glittery outfits. They're flexing their watches. All of a sudden, white kids in suburban America are singing and knowing the songs. Right now, comedy is at such a fever pitch in popularity, it has expanded to the general public, and people that haven't necessarily been educated comedy consumers in the past are now fans of comedy, and they are driving the content just as much as people that know about it. So when you say like hip hop culture, like we're staying true to the culture, it's like, yeah, but half your fans don't even know what the fucking culture is now because it's expanded so big. And it's the same way I think in comedy, where it's like so many comedy fans had no idea what comedy was 18 months ago. And now they're just neck deep in stand up, and they're like, oh, crowd work and learning new things. And dude, I get off stage all the time and people are like, I like that tag. And I'm like, you're not supposed to know that.
Oh, I hate that too.
It's the worst.
I hate when people know how to analyze comedy like a comedian, because it just makes you feel naked.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, damn. Like, you'll see comments that are like, oh, like once this bit's flushed out, it'll be better. And I'm like, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, you're right. Third of all, fuck you even more. I'm going to go jump off my balcony.
Of course they're right, but it's kind of like doing a puppet show with no curtain. You're just a dick with strings. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? They are completely nudifying us and taking away the magic.
Right. Yeah. That you know, with any positive thing come negatives.
100%.
And yeah, this sort of... Also, this ability to look behind the veil and see and listen to podcasts. And not only is it a good resource for people who want to start comedy to like understand what it's like, but it's also good for like just a super fan to learn about
100%
the specifics of writing jokes and all that shit.
Dude, that's how I got it. I mean, I was listening What the Fuck with Mark Maron popped when I first started.
Really?
And that's like, and 08, like 08, 09, that's like right when literally the year I started was 08. That popped. I was listening to that constantly because I wanted any insight into stand-up I could get. So it basically taught me kind of more so than a class or anything like that, short form on how to write bits. So I'm not mad. This isn't me complaining about the access. It's just a commentary on where things are. So like it's just a completely different shift of focus from how we started in an analog period, I would say, with slight social media. And then, you know, now
there was no social media really, dude.
It was Dane.
MySpace.
Dane was doing MySpace, but that was, even he was like looked at as like, was this guy gaming the system?
He was a anti-establishment figure.
You guys both start around the same time?
I started in 2008 also. When specifically?
2008?
I started in January. I think it was January or February because I was passing out flyers in Times Square in the dead of winter wearing Converses. Like, I'm from New York, so I should have had the information to dress appropriately, but I just did not wear enough, and I'm just chattering my ass off while people from
Comedy Central and BET.
Dude, people from LOL are coming up to me like they're, you know, they're not comics, but they're doing it, and they're like, hey, get off that. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, do I have coke in my nose? And I'm like, yes. Like a tremendous amount of blow in your
I don't
nose.
think LOL existed yet, by the way.
Did it not? Oh, Ha was it then back then?
Yes, Ha.
Yes.
What is LOL and Ha? Are
Neither
these like the
of them
rappers
exist
on the side of
anymore.
the street? that hand
Yeah,
you-
they might as well
They
be.
put CDs in your hand?
They might as well be, dude. Yeah.
Those guys also we'd have to share corners with too.
Yeah.
Those guys
and
are
they
aggressive.
They would get very aggressive because they'd ask you what your name was and they'd write it on the disc and then they'd be like, well, now you have to buy it.
Right.
And then you'd turn and be like, I'm not fucking buying it. And one of their boys would be standing there. I got in a shoving match early in my New York City career of living here outside of the Virgin Megastore. In like
That is no longer there either.
Not even close. Like not even close. Either 07 or 08, right after college, and so that exact exchange of guy like being, I wrote your name, dude, you gotta buy it. And then I'm trying to walk away and his buddy's like bumping me and I'm like, I guess I'm fighting everyone. I was like, this is the scariest moment of my entire life. But one little like, get off me, and they all clear, you know, they parted. But that was
Did they put the CD in your hand?
He tried to, and I just dropped it.
You have to. It's the equivalent of like the sort of hologram Buddhism guys. They put a hologram in your hand and you're like, oh, what's this? And then they're like,
yes.
Oh, donation.
Yeah.
You bastard.
When they did it to me, it was a donation they were asking for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that, I don't know. That's what they're doing now. But the same thing. I said, I don't want to. And then I felt guilty. And then they started circling me like sharks.
Yeah.
I go
See,
to
he's
pull
still
out.
falling for this. That's how nice of a guy he is.
This was like almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
but they're circling me, and then I'm like, okay, I guess I do need to give them a donation, or they'll like kill me. So then I went to pull out $1.
It's racist. But
And I was scared.
It was Nems, the rapper.
And I pulled out $1, and they saw a 5, and then they're like, why don't we get the 5 too? And then I was like, I can't do this. And then I gave them the $1, and I walked away. And then they took the CD out of my hand as I was walking away.
Wow.
So they
That's
just
not
gave,
good.
I just gave them $1.
The interesting thing about that is that CD was blank. So don't worry. Don't worry.
you
That's
think
what
that's
they would do all
happening?
the time. Oh yeah, for
Wow.
sure. My buddy has gotten that. He again, just to get out, like path of least resistance. Here's $5. Get the fuck out of my face.
Right.
They gave it to him and he went home and it's a completely rewritable.
wow. I love that he listened. So he's like, you know what? Let's see here.
I need to hear my abuser.
That's really funny. I bought one on the street in Washington, D.C. from this guy named Akir.
Oh.
And I still have it.
Is it good?
Dude, this is the thing about Akir.
You burned it and then put it on your
I
phone.
used to upload every single thing onto my Apple Music.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like really, during that time, but I believe I still have Akir on here. Let's see if I can find it.
Isn't that funny? There was a time where we thought our digital library of music was going to be really important.
Dude, I
Like
know.
personal digital libraries.
It was really sad when it became obsolete, but there
Yeah.
are still some like mixtapes that you can't stream where I'm like, I have like 6 songs
Yeah.
that you don't have. Dude.
Oh, that's nice. See, I wish when I had I don't know if actually it was out at the same time, but the Drought 3, Lil Wayne's my favorite mixtape from him. It's a double mixtape, but I don't know if Napster or Kazaa was even around back then, but the only place you could listen to it is YouTube. Like, you can't find it on anything else, or at least that I've looked at.
Oh, right. No, I think that a lot of his mixtapes are now streaming.
Oh, cool.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if that one specifically, but here's some Akira here. Hopefully we won't get flagged.
This was from the street?
From the street.
Straight from the streets.
Back the fuck up. Yo, Elder said keep your focus. Smirk and say I'm hopeless. Addict for greenbacks. Rubber bands over mean stacks. I'ma get it, I mean that.
That plays.
I mean, how funny would it be like pressuring a white boy selling my album for a bill?
There may not be anything on it. I wonder how many times what just happened has happened. This could be the first time in the history of people buying albums off the street that an album was uploaded into a music library and played on the episode of the show.
And to truly give that guy a plug if he's still out there kicking.
Shout out to Akir. This is going to be a story. Guys on the street corner, they're like, Akir, he ended up on Oops the Podcast, bro. You never know.
Guy's SoundCloud just blew up.
He's going to walk by. Yeah.
There's a chance that nobody has listened to that song in 15 years.
That's a good point,
possible.
too.
Until when this comes out.
It is possible.
Wow.
So maybe this will be his like murder on the dance floor moment. We're bringing him back now.
That's
that it's hot
TikTok
right
trend.
now.
Yeah. Or the girl from Stranger Things. The running up the hill.
Oh, yeah. That's so
Yeah.
sick how that's like a possibility.
It's unreal. 35 years down the line, she's like, why did I just make
know.
$2.5 million?
Dude, I wonder if Sophie Ellis Bextor, like what she was doing. Because by the way, I used to like that song. I
Really?
had it on one of my playlists, and I used to listen to it when I swear to God, when it used to come out. Not that I'm like claiming it, but it just happened to be in my universe.
It's a very cool thing to say.
Like, do you think that she's like retired and suddenly she's like, all right, I guess I'm going on tour again, dude?
I know. Do you think that actually kicks it up to her wanting to get back out there, or is she just happy with the lump sum payment?
I don't know.
How many years out was she?
Dude, it's been a bit. It's been a minute. Like, that song's from probably 15 years ago.
Well, because that's the thing.
longer.
That's the only way I think to get them back out on the road is if you haven't done it for a minute. Like, then you might want to actually get back out there, like, see what it's like. Oh, this is actually touring in ideal circumstances as opposed to how I was doing it early in my career.
You get to pick and choose a bit more. They're like, hey, how about a holiday party?
Yeah.
We know you don't have that many songs, but...
Like in Funny People, you want to just have $300,000 just to play that song 8 times in a row? That would be awesome. Yeah, I do.
Dude, I know.
The song's by Kate Bush?
No, it's by, Kate Bush. I know, it's by Sophie Ellis Bextor.
Okay, because the one by Kate Bush came out in the 80s.
Kate Bush is reminding me of something that we don't need to talk about, but
No kidding.
it's Rosalia's favorite artist. And I remember an interview with her and her boyfriend, or her and her fiance, and they've broken up, and I've taken the fiance's side, the man.
No kidding.
And it's hard for me to listen to Rosalia. And if anybody has anything that defends Rosalia in this situation, please tell me, because I've been skipping her on my playlist now, and she used to be one of my favorite artists.
Oh.
It's real. It's real.
Running Up That Hill is 1985.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's by Kate Bush.
Right, that's by Kate Bush.
Murder on the Dance Floor is 2001.
Okay, yeah. That's
On the
what
3rd of December.
Dude, I love that. I love that you're just out there taking sides on public breakups.
I really like them as a couple.
Yeah.
Like, really was fun for me. And now that they've broken up, it's been hard.
Do you have a favorite? Because that's actually something that I haven't really considered all that much. But now that, I mean, my answer is kind of just a no duh. But do you have a go-to couple like that you actually aspire to, or at least look to as like, that seems like they're real?
Fun. No, I was invested in them as a couple. Like, I thought they were fun. Or even like, it'll be something stupid. They literally have like a couples quiz. It's like, how much do you know about your partner?
Yeah.
And he's like, who's my favorite footballer or whatever, right? Like, and she's like, Cristiano Ronaldo, and then he just goes, and it was hard, bro. I was like, oh my God, like little shit like that. I'm like, they're so fun. Oh my God.
The cross and the throw.
So fun. Oh my God.
They're just the best.
So yeah, anyway, what's your answer?
I think my go-to, not just given half a minute to think about it, I think it's LeBron and Savannah James.
Oh wow.
I really like them as a couple because whatever agreement that they have, which they must. I mean, he's been with her since high school. There's no way LeBron is not, at least doing whatever. Whatever agreement that they have, and if they don't, more power to them. But either way, it's maintained their family. They've kept it together. Nothing's getting out there into the world, and they continue to seem to respect each other on a level, publicly, where it's like, oh, they at least are making like billionaire relationship work. That's kind of cool.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a great answer.
I love LeBron.
Yeah, me too.
You got one?
Well, mine is so elementary now that you mentioned LeBron and Savannah. I was thinking Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis.
Oh.
But that, that's very People Magazine of me to say.
Yeah,
And
well,
so they have had a bad year and a half.
I like
so
the
I don't
fact
know
that
how
they
it's gonna
come
play.
together and support a rapist. That's fun. That's a strong couple
didn't work out
activity.
well
That's the last year and a half in which I
Danny Masterson
question
thing?
that. But LeBron and Savannah, that's fantastic. I saw recently a compilation clip of Savannah when she's at games. She only takes selfies with women.
Yes.
And if a guy goes up to her to take a selfie or try to talk to her, she's just like, nope.
Yeah, she's female Mike Pence. You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Interesting. I respect that.
You get LeBron has like some Donald Sterling tape somewhere in the background of like, I just don't want you taking pictures with him. I mean, hang out with them all you want, just no pictures. Do you remember those tapes?
I do.
Oof, that guy just walking Blake Griffin around his locker room like he's showing off a pony. What a creep.
Is he
What a
still
true
alive?
creep.
He has to be.
Stern?
No, Sterling.
David Stern is not alive. Donald Sterling may have just recently died. But dude, I listened to his, like they had a whole series, a podcast series on that thing, and
God.
it is more bonkers than you could ever imagine.
That whole thing was crazy.
He's
dude.
still alive.
He is.
Donald Sterling's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Who's the
Depends who you ask.
Who is the old commissioner? Jesus. David Stern was the old
David
guy.
Stern, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Easy to mix up.
Who ruled with an iron fist, who I think if there's ever a sports conspiracy that's true, it is Michael Jordan being semi-exiled for 18 months and then coming back. And David,
What is this conspiracy? I don't know.
Was it over the gambling?
Yeah. So the conspiracy is that Michael Jordan was doing some pretty open gambling and the story was going to somehow come out publicly. I don't know, again, truth, whatever, is not to it. So David Stern said, you're going to be suspended for 18 months. We can't have this. We can't have this story come out. It's going to destroy our league, truly. And so he gave him a silent suspension, which is when he went and played baseball. And then once the suspension was up, he came back. There's also a conspiracy that because of his gambling losses, he was in debt to a lot of people, and that resulted in his father's murder.
I've heard that one.
And I mean, I don't know. They sure glossed over it in The Last Dance, like Michael's connection with a couple of these guys. They're like, yeah, so he knows people. Whatever, we all do. And then it was like, all right, that's that. But the way they caught the dudes, they were like, apparently they took a video of themselves wearing the jewelry and bragging about taking out, like they knew who it was. So this guy was just parked on the side of the highway. It seemed like it was just a random occurrence, but from the aftermath, they're like, it seemed like a pretty planned thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sad. Either way you cut it, it's just sad shit.
I've heard that one before. The one thing I have a question about with the suspension is how does this suspension prevent the story from coming out?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That is where the logic completely dies, because it's like, what are you going to find some media member who's willing to keep it lock and key?
Right. Like, were they a Knicks fan or
As long as
something?
you play basketball.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, for real. It's like, okay, yeah, like as long as he doesn't play for the next 18 months,
Yeah.
we won't.
Yeah, that's a big hole in it. I don't know. It just like, I just know the levels that he was playing and gambling, and it does seem like, from what I know, he doesn't necessarily pay all of his.
Interesting.
Or from what I've heard, again, from what I know nothing.
Right. No, interesting. Yeah, I've never heard that one, but I have heard the stuff about the murder. Obviously, very sad.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Giulio.
Yes, Ryan.
Spent the whole week by myself.
Oh, you poor guy.
And Victoria wasn't here, and I'll be honest, it's been pretty quiet and lonely in the apartment.
I'm sorry,
and
bro.
I've been a little sad.
That's really sad.
But
Hard.
the one thing that's keeping me intact and together is my pair of MeUndies. My pairs of MeUndies, they've got me through the week. I got 7 pairs, one for each day that Vic's not here, keeping me compact and comfortable and as held together as physically possible. I do.
At least I'm comfortable.
Yeah, at least I'm comfortable. So all sadness aside, I'm so glad that I have MeUndies and that we're working with them, because I needed some extra support this week.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Shout out to that ball caddy.
The fabric is so soft. It's like a hug from a sweater or from your girlfriend that you miss so much.
Yeah, it's like eating a delicious hatch chili pepper from New Mexico. You feel the warmth immediately.
Immediately. It's just one of those things, no matter what you're feeling, whether it's good or bad, happy or sad, when you're wearing MeUndies, you feel at the very least a little bit better. And a little bit can be a lot when you're having a bad week.
That's very
true.
true.
I absolutely love MeUndies. It's so comfortable. If you haven't checked it out yet, we've been talking about it for a while, but you have to. Once you feel it, you know it's the real deal. It's the real feel.
The real deal, the real feel. They have a bunch of different styles. So whatever your sort of inclination is as to what kind of pair of underwear you like, they have you covered from a style perspective. But the one baseline thing that you will get is the comfort, and that's very good. And as I flash these nice solid pair of kind of classic all black boxer briefs up, I can't help but think of that scene in Home Alone 2 where he's like, "Your drawers, sir." And he's like, "You can't, don't flash those babies around. There's girls on this floor." So this is where it's at. This is what I like to rock with. You can rock with whatever style you like, but get 20% off right now of your first order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/OopsPodcast. That's MeUndies.com/OopsPodcast for 20% off plus free shipping. MeUndies, comfort from the outside in. I want to go back into what we were talking about before. So comedians making money, great, haha. Back in the day, it was like, no, there was like a period of time where it's like you needed to, there was more gatekeeping, it felt like before, right?
Totally,
it's like, okay, you need to have
different.
There's like,
I'm going to say different gatekeeping because now a lot of us do our own gatekeeping.
Interesting.
Yeah, but go ahead.
I want to hear more about
Yeah.
Put a pin in that one.
I'll put a pin.
Okay, so first it's like, okay, a variety of these people need to approve of you, and then you'll have a chance. So, and then maybe you'll end up on a late night show, or you'll get a Montreal.
Yeah.
And then
Half hour was big.
These are all like sort of springboard moments. Then if you do a half hour special and it does really well, maybe you can take it to that next level. And, you know, the great people have never been able to be held back ultimately. But, you know, so there was that. Then it kind of shifted into, it was sort of the same thing, but it became a little bit more about diversity.
Yeah.
So same gatekeeping, a little less likely maybe for guys like you and me for a period of time.
Sure.
And then it turned into this time where you can sort of make your own destiny. And if you're popular, there's just nothing anybody can do to stop you from being popular.
Yeah.
And you can kind of write your own ticket,
Yeah.
which, you know, has its pros and cons. From the surface, I think about a guy like you and what I know about you, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a great time for you.
Yeah.
Because you always have been a person who's able to kind of work hard and you seem to have a lot of output, a lot of energy, get shit done. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way in terms of like, I've thought about this a lot because I get mad about when we came up and then I get appreciative and, you know, it's an evolving feeling. But I do appreciate in the sense that like for that period of time where we both got stuff early with MTV, especially.
That's true, yeah.
Where it's like we were kind of working when we didn't necessarily deserve it. We were just young, moderately attractive white men.
What were you doing again?
I did Philosophy. I did Money from Strangers, which was Jeff Dye's kind of early
It was
incarnation
all-
of Impractical Jokers.
Yep.
And they all did that in New York. So it was like, this was kind of
I forgot about
who they
that.
picked from. And then you did the
was
prank
it.
show.
I did the prank show. MTV had like a pretty solid rooting here, and they were like developing a lot of shows around comedians, and it was a big opportunity for people potentially at the time.
Well, and then so while I was doing, I was like 3 to maybe 5 years max in while I was getting all of that stuff. I got a series for like Cosmopolitan Magazine, Cosmo Sexy versus Skanky. Unfortunately, still on YouTube. Brutal stuff. But I got that, and it made me money that I shouldn't have made, you know, but it forced me to then have to quit my job. So I became a full-time comic without the chops or ability to do stand-up. So I was a full-time comedy person. I wasn't a full-time comedian. I couldn't go out on the road. I couldn't do anything. So I got all this stuff, became a full-time comic, and then didn't work for 18 months and was like, because MTV dropped all of us, stopped doing that, did their whole shift, which was perfectly fine, went that direction, we went this way, and then it was like, I'm a little fucked, but it forced me to learn stand-up. So that break and that ability to like not work, but I still have some money coming in or whatever, that ability to kind of hide and get good at the thing I wanted to do anyway is something I don't know if a lot of people have the opportunity to do now, because there's open micers posting clips and shit, and you're like, I get it. I get the impulse to do that. I'm so glad I didn't feel compelled or pressured to do that because I think chops are like are necessary. I wouldn't want, I mean, I look at some people that blow up early and it seems like almost like bad luck, where it's like you have to take it. You have to strike while the iron's hot. You have to accept money when it comes in.
Right. And then you
career.
go and you can't even do 20 minutes.
For real.
An hour. And
that's why I have a ton of respect for Carly Aquilino, somebody who literally got famous when she was like a 3-minute in comic. And then she continued to be famous and climb, but she was at the clubs. She was doing 10 minutes. She was touring still, so she was performing for her fans, but then she was coming home, doing her sets, learning how to do stand-up, and she got to be a really solid, really good comic. And it's like, that's hard to do while you're also famous and newly famous.
Right. It's hard to sort of like, to put your tail between your legs, and even though you're sitting around, you're amongst comics who you're like, I am way more popular than these people. I can sell tickets. Like, why am I even wasting my time?
Yeah.
You kind of like put it, you check your ego and you go and you work on it. I think she's also very talented. By the way. Like
totally.
She's like, so, it happened to a good person in that regard, because it's like she is really good at like being herself and stating good ideas that people like gravitate toward.
But there's been talented people that like just kind of was like, this is the ride. You know what I mean? That once they got picked up, they're like, well, I don't have to work. Right. Like, I'll just do this. I'm clearly good enough, so I'll just do what it is. So anybody that like rides that wave and then also puts in the work, I like those people.
Agreed. And look, like we, 2008, right? We started doing this, and like, you need certain things for longevity. So theoretically, substance and skill will sort of prevail at the end of the day. And if you get lucky and then you get unlucky, that becomes more palatable as time goes on. If you've built up a set of skills, you can you have relationships, you are able to do other things, because like you said, in 2011 and 2012, I was a professional entertainer.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of great things happen. 3 great things happened to me. I had that show. Now, granted, the prank show never really transitioned. I never really made it into the sphere of the like comedic personalities
on MTV.
Yeah. I was like doing the prank show, and that didn't translate into me being an obvious person to like talk to the camera about shit. I did some sketches for some of these shows.
I was at the door for that. I didn't get invited in either.
Yeah.
I was at the door. It was open, and they were talking to somebody in the party already, and they didn't let me in.
right. Yeah. I'm used to that. I know that. I know that idea well. But yeah, so there was that, and like I made some money, and then from like 2013 to probably 2018, I did not make enough money doing it to support myself.
Totally.
And I kind of had to like figure it out. And it was a combination of like getting lucky and doing like side jobs, or like literally being like, what am I going to do next week? I don't know.
Yeah.
I might have to call up Uncle Lou.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which we don't need to go deeper into that. But then like I'd get a residual check for $1,000 that I wasn't expecting, and like somehow be able to keep going. So during that 18-month period, where you weren't making any money or whatever, like how many times since those first couple of years where you got lucky and were making money have you had to do other things that were not comedy to make money?
One other time. So, but
one period of time? Yeah,
for like, so it was more for, it was honestly more for mental health. Obviously the money, I could always use more money, but it was, so that 18 months happened and I stopped working. And not only did I have no foundation to be a comedian, I didn't really have a foundation to be a man. So like, I didn't know how to deal with all of this unstructured time. I fell into a brutal, like couldn't get off the couch depression for almost a year and a half.
When is this?
This is, probably like 2013, 2014, 2014-ish. Yeah, 2014-ish. So I'm like, I can't get off the couch. I'm really brutally upset. I'm still doing spots. I'm drinking heavy. This is my worst time for like drugs and drinking and shit like that. But it was Friday Night Lights, the TV show, that actually broke through my depression. Because I don't know about you. You played sports. I don't know if you did this, but after I stopped playing sports, I played 2 years of junior college. I went on strike. I was like, I just have worked my body to the bone for 20 years. I think I'm done exercising. Like, I think I'm done pushing it, because I'm just sick of it. I'm so fucking over it. And so I stopped working out. I thought comics were supposed to be schlubby and shitty looking and like a little, whatever. And so I just went that way. And then Friday Night Lights brought
Rewired you.
Not even rewired. It reminded me of myself and of who I was, and like the competitiveness and playing sports and being driven physically, not just idea wise, but physically driven. And it just made me get up off the couch, go to the gym, and it restarted all this stuff. And because of that show, I actually started coaching soccer. So I started coaching ages 2 to 7, like 7, 8 maybe, for soccer. And I was doing it for like 4 hours a week. So it wasn't, I was bringing in maybe $50 a week. So it wasn't like crazy money or anything like that. It was purely like, I'll buy an eighth of weed with this per week. This will be my weed money. Great. And I'm getting it from children. So that's good. But also I'm outside, I'm doing something active, and I'm not around comics in a dark place who are talking pessimistically.
Right.
So I'm around youthful hope.
Right.
And that shit became like, it seeped into my pores. Like, I became optimistic from hanging out with kids who, one, liked me, and two, looked at life, you know, in a fun way.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, and I always say this, and I think it may be like that period of time. So what, 2013, it's like 5-ish years.
Yeah.
To me, that's a difficult benchmark for a comedian, because there's, and granted, maybe it's a little different for us because we did have some like early kind of like lucky success or whatever it is you want to call it. But it becomes harder and harder to like accomplish milestones around that 5-year mark.
Yeah.
And that can be a difficult thing to sort of overcome.
Being the only other time in my life that it reminded me of is it reminded me when I was like 6 feet tall with no pubes. You know what I mean? Like I was like in 8th grade. Yeah, I didn't
really
go.
tall.
I went through puberty late, and I had like barely any pubes in 7th and 8th grade, but I was like 6 foot.
Hilarious.
And I basically was like, yeah, it's like trying to bang somebody with a kid's dick. It's like, what am I gonna do? There's nothing I can do. None of this is possible for either of us. So it was the most frustrating, just limp dick moment of my life.
Dude, yeah, no, totally. Okay, so wait, what we pinned something earlier. What was it again?
Oh, gatekeeping, just in general. I think, I mean, you know, it's not, I don't know if it's gatekeeping per se. It may be, but it's also, it's like friend nepotism. It's all of these things. And I'm a beneficiary of it. I'm the co-host of Chrissy Chaos. I am a friend nepotism benefactor. So good stuff. Thank you.
Well, but that always existed though, right?
Totally.
That, like, you could get co-signed by people before.
Totally. But now, because we are also the owners of our own platforms, you have the right to include or exclude whoever you'd like.
Right.
So as comedians, especially the higher ups, they have the ability to basically gatekeep. So they are of themselves a Comedy Central, or they are of themselves a Netflix. Right. Interesting. And they can basically make their selection process however the fuck they want.
Yeah, that is true. I'm certainly a beneficiary of that as well.
Yeah.
And this all is like back to what we were talking about before, prom shows. Yeah. That was a pretty illustrious group.
Oh yeah, dude.
Doing those shows with us.
It was me, you, Ricky, Chris.
Chris D.
Oh yeah, Pete. Yeah.
When I first started coming into it though, Chris DiStefano, who we talked about before, he was handing off the booking process to Ricky.
That's right.
And so I don't know if he was still doing it, but I had known him already. And it's funny, Ricky like doesn't even remember this. Like that's how long we've like known each other at this point. Ricky and I meeting each other is disputed.
Really?
Like Ricky's like, no, dude, we met here. I'm like, no, dude, we met here. Like we still don't agree on this.
That's so funny.
My memory is at this prom shows, but there was other people too. Like I'm trying to think who else. Nico White was doing those.
Lance Weiss, he got banned because he like started cursing at the kids and like went behind the curtain and told them they were all fucking idiots or something like that. Yeah, it was a classic Lance Weiss moment, but it was very funny.
So just to clarify, this is performing at prom.
So kind of, it's the night of.
Good question, because we're just saying prom shows and
the night of the prom. I guess the parents or the school or whatever decided it would be a good idea to give these kids some sort of structured activity throughout the night so they don't do destructive shit.
It was a program to reduce drinking.
Basically.
Like a big sleepover at a gym or something.
The same concept.
Yeah.
But the shows would be at comedy clubs.
Yes.
So they'd bust them to these comedy clubs at like 2:00 in the morning or whatever.
Wow.
And we'd perform for free.
And they were almost always drunk.
So
whatever the parents had planned immediately went out the window because these kids were blacked out. Dude, I remember one in particular, and you may have been there for this, but during the show, we had to actually push a garbage can next to some kid who was just violently throwing up at the World Comedy Club, to the point where he was throwing up and then fell headfirst into the garbage can, into his own vomit. So we had to call his parent. Like, it became a thing. Like, I didn't. Eric Hansen, I think, who ran it, he had to call the parent. And like, we're expecting some parent to show up and be like, what the fuck? Like, come on, man. You can't keep your goddamn act together for one night, whatever. But it was a dad with like, he may as well have been coming in with a Bud Heavy and a beer koozie. He was literally wearing his Letterman jacket, and he picked his son up like he was his bride, and he was like, "This is gonna be the best years of your life, kid." As he's walking this kid out, and we were like, "Damn, man, that kid is. I mean, that kid's dead. There's no doubt in my mind. That kid is dead and gone."
Yeah, dude, that is wild. All right, well, dude, you are taping another special soon, right? You wanna plug those shows.
Yeah, so April 6th, I'm doing 2 shows at Stamford, in Stamford, Connecticut, at New York Comedy Club. Brand new spot. I know that's confusing that it's in Connecticut and it's called New York Comedy Club, but it's there. It's an awesome room. I've done it a couple times. I actually did my most recent crowd work on edibles special which was so fun. And then and I'm doing 2 shows. Chris DiStefano is producing it again. Nepo beneficiary.
Great.
And he's gonna help release it, distribute it, all that stuff. So I'm pumped, man. It's just constantly trying to turn over material and keep this shit fun.
Totally.
Congrats. It's awesome.
Congrats,
Thanks,
man.
dude.
It's gonna be great.
Thanks.
So I have a question for you in relation to that. So, we all kind of started together. It was kind of like an equal, even playing field.
Mm-hmm. At
any point, did you ever feel bad as peers of yours started becoming more successful than you?
Yeah, yesterday. all the time. And it's like, it's not even them. It's the only bad I feel is about myself. Like I'm myself speak the way I interact with myself would be unacceptable for any other human being to speak to me that way. It would result into a knockdown, drag out, I might take your life moment if anybody talked to me the way I talk to me. So I mean, anytime people, I think Marin might have said this, but it's like his friends are succeeding at him.
Hilarious. That's so funny.
And it sometimes feels that way, right? Where it's like, fuck, man, I've convinced myself on 100 milligram edible where I'm just like, I don't know, man, maybe there actually is like a keyword negative connotation to my name on the internet, and maybe there's like attached metadata that's actually suppressing my career, just going off
another
on
conspiracy theory.
Yeah, of course, just flying off the handle where I'm just like, but then I take breaths, I go to the gym or whatever, and just kind of get out of it and recognize that, first of all, it's not even me, it's not them. Let's blame who it's really about. It's my parents. So and then I just get to walk through life guilt-free.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I remember thinking kind of like when that first started to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people near us started to do extremely well.
Yeah.
And to the point where there are certain people who are like generational,
For sure.
kind of like fame and whatever.
Totally.
So, initially the wave for me, it's like that starts to happen. That kind of like doesn't feel great, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I'm not like, I don't hold it against them.
Yeah.
I'm not like mad or weird about it, but like, I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like for me.
Yeah.
But whatever, it's fine. Like, but then I could quickly be like, but it's good. Like
Yes.
this is actually good. It'll help you ultimately, maybe not to make it about me still, but I'm like, if we're thinking that way, let's think about that way. And then eventually the gap just continued to grow. It's like, not only
I thought you were going to say something positive. And then it just continued to chasm.
Yeah, right. Their exceptional, whatever it was, talent, looks, ability, a combination of all of it, just slowly, like the gap just grew and grew and grew.
Sure.
To the point where eventually it's no longer a comparison. And now it's just like a desperation to try to be involved.
A reminder that we too are still pursuing this.
Right? It's like, okay, well, if you can't beat him, join him. Like fully, like, how do I benefit off of this?
Yeah.
And you can't help but think about that.
No, of course not. I think that's a very real thing, and also I think relates to almost every industry.
Right.
If you see a coworker
peers,
who you love, literally love, and go out with on a personal level, and if they get that bump ahead of you, there's a good for them, and I'm happy, but there is that, like, whether it's your own opinion of yourself or what it represents or whatever, there is still like just a little slight dollop of poison in the well. And it's your job to try to just funnel that out quickly, or it could just spread and take over the whole body of water.
And this is the beauty of it. Like conventional competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's me versus you. You win. That's it. I lose, right?
Yeah.
But this is not like that. So, and this might just be a coping mechanism, but it is also true because think about it this way. You and I are best friends and we're up for something and you get it instead of me, right? if you didn't get it, that doesn't mean that I was going to get it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else will still get it. So it doesn't have to be like that. And I find that like 99% of the time, it is a me versus me thing.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
Which,
absolutely.
you know, not to make a sports metaphor there, but like in tennis, you typically are losing points because you are making mistakes.
And that's almost like if you are going to get into comedy, tennis or like a golf is a really great training ground because I think it makes you individually mentally strong. Whereas I come from a team sport background.
Right.
So sometimes, and I not sometimes, but all the time, comedy teamwork is difficult. So whether it's even just figuring out scheduling, it's hard. So it's an adjustment for my brain to go from literal point guard for distributing the ball and all that shit to then being like, okay, now I'm James Harden point guard. Now I'm heliocentric. Nobody else gets the ball, and it's I'm cooking, and it's tough to kind of like change into that. Do you think tennis actually prepared you for it?
Like maybe not, but but it's helpful. It's helpful to use these comparisons for me.
Sure.
Like, you know, I don't know. Like I always found, like it prepared me for it in a different way. Like I always kind of felt like I underachieved as a tennis player, and I'm like, I don't want to do that as a comedian.
Yeah.
So, you know, the one thing that makes me feel good about what we're doing, there's a couple things. So first of all, when you start being a performer, and Lynch, I wonder what your relationship is with this whole concept and idea. But like,
is it tough to be this white and have the last name Lynch?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Lynch.
Lynch?
That's my last name, of course.
What's your middle name? I miss
Christian.
I miss Lynch.
I miss.
No, I
Lynch.
love this. This is a good Lynch roast. We need this from time to time.
Thank you.
What were we talking about again?
You were about to say something.
Not helpful. Something about okay. There's the two things that I feel good about. So when you start doing this, right, you have an idea of it based on sort of like some broader outwardly, like you're watching from outside in, right? So you're like, ooh, this guy's doing this, that's cool, that's fun. Ooh, it'll be fun to like be famous and girls, and like I also think I could be a performer, like I'm kind of funny, like I should do this, whatever, right? You have this broad idea. As you continue to do it, you kind of learn about what you specifically like.
Sure.
The novelty of fame starts to wear off.
Yes.
I don't know how you feel about it. I certainly still think it would be sick to be like super famous and like rich and also, you know what I mean?
The fame element is less attractive to me than the money.
Right.
And money, I'm not even talking about money from like a take over the world perspective, because I don't have that. I don't have that like billionaire thing of like, once I make money, I'm going to take all the money.
Things.
Like, I just don't have that. But I strictly from I don't have to think about bills. I don't have to worry about my kid. I don't have to worry about my what. Like we're all straight, at least for the year. Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like that to me, that gives me so much more peace than fame.
Right. No, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like to me, it would be fun. I wouldn't mind increased fame because I know that it would directly relate to how much money I have.
And tickets.
Tickets.
There's nothing better than showing up to a place and you get to perform for people who are there for real to see you.
Yes.
There are people that watch your shit. They research you beforehand. They're like, oh, you're really funny. Let's go out for a night.
It's the best.
When people know you, and it's like, especially from the pod, and it's shorthand, and they're fired up about your journey, especially for your special. I can't even imagine what that was like.
It was amazing.
I bet people were so goddamn jazzed up because one, it's a long time coming. You could have and should have had specials up until this point, but with the journey of this podcast in particular, what your audience has done with you, and kind of, you know, you're setting out on your own, you're doing this and by yourself, and now this other thing by yourself. I mean, that is, if that's not something to rally behind, what the fuck is?
Dude, this is going to be the beginning of my special. Makes you Lynch. Let's isolate that and send it off today.
Yeah,
no, I appreciate that, dude.
Yeah, of course.
For sure. And yeah, like the money... Yeah, money is obviously motivating there. And as long like there's only a handful of people who are so famous that it like affects their actual lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I'm willing to push that boundary in theory. I'm not like afraid of it. But as time goes on and I learn about what I like specifically more, what I want to do is be as successful as I can doing those things.
Yes.
As opposed to being like, how do I get the most famous, or how do I?
Yes.
Now, not to say that if I were to pursue that path, it doesn't mean that would happen.
No, of course.
I'm not. This isn't a cop out. It's specific. Like, oh, I actually know what I like. I enjoy doing it, and I want to like figure out how to make it work.
I hope. I mean, don't isolate what I said. Isolate that because that's a beautiful thing. Is that's not acceptance in a like I'm accepting my lot in life. That's acceptance of being like I know what I want to do. I have a clear vision of the type of things that I want to create, and I want to get elevated as humanly possible, as high as humanly possible, doing those things. Whereas before was an abstract pursuit of fame.
Right.
Where you're like, oh, I'll do whatever. If I can do this, then I'll funnel back into this, then maybe I'll do that. But you're like, I've been doing this now 15, 16 years, so I have an idea of what I want to do.
Exactly.
And so hopefully those things bring in the interest that I'm looking for.
Right. And yeah, like even if that isn't what you just said, like isn't specifically in your head when you're starting, like that the idea of all of that, of course, contributes to the idea of like you wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
that would be cool. Oh, wow. Like, I don't know. It would be stupid to act like it didn't. So there's that. And the second thing is that you never have to stop doing this,
right?
Which is nice. And when you compare it to sports, you really do have a shelf life in sports. You don't here.
Yeah.
So I love watching people sort of like have their moment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's motivating to me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the shelf life with stand-ups is you almost get too old. Like your sports too old or when you get too rich. You know, like that's the shelf life. Is not a lot of people have been able to keep human perspective while operating at inhuman wealth levels.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Eddie Murphy, for instance, all these people that Kevin Hart, it's like his specials get less and less relatable. Not to say he's not funny. They get less and less relatable when he's talking about being on a PJ with Dwayne Wade. And you're like, yeah, that sounds awesome, dude. But I'm not like, I definitely did not subscribe to a comedian to be influenced. Like, I don't want to see what the life I missed out on looks like.
Interesting.
Comedians, I mean, we're from an age where it's like comics went up there and you were supposed to feel better about your life because of how awful we were.
Right.
You know what I mean? But now we're like, check my life, dog. Check how I'm living. Look at the kicks. Look at the designer clothes. I am flossing.
But some people like that.
Of course. I'm not even saying that it's not like, it's not for me. It's not a bad thing. Again, Mason P. Diddy. Mason
P. Diddy. That fucking guy, dude.
That fucking guy.
Mason
but
P. Diddy.
it's for whoever, it suits for whoever. It's just not my not my cup of jizz.
No, but I feel you. It's like, and people, Logan Paul, right? You follow him, hanging with his friends. He's doing all this fun shit. He's blowing up Ferraris, whatever he's doing. People like it, right? They like to watch it, whatever. But for stand up, I do hear what you're saying. If you're a comic who your thing is like being relatable and people are like, oh yeah, that's so true. It becomes harder to sort of manufacture those kind of stories as your life becomes like a 0.01%.
Totally.
life.
Yeah.
And that's why the successful people who are rich are like the social commentary people.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
You have to talk about politics and broader things because no one can relate to your lifestyle.
I think Shane does a really good job Shane Gillis. He does a really good job at maintaining his perspective. I mean, God knows how much money he has at this point, you know, but it doesn't come off that way.
No.
You don't look at him and you're like, man, that guy is worth a shitload. You're like, oh, that's a dude. He's hilarious. Right. Like just an everyday guy, still relates to everybody.
Right. You're like, until recently, this guy just lived upstairs from Chris and Tommy.
Exactly. And you're like, oh, look at that. Good shit, man. Get the fucking money. Right. And then like, I think for Schultz, the best thing that happened to him, I think, is having a kid. Like, because that will then bring him back to earth in terms of like how he can relate to people. Where I'm not saying that he is outer space crazy. I'm just saying that like I can't relate to a lot of his life or before the baby. Now he's got a baby. We have a lot in common. You know what I mean? But just being that successful, I didn't necessarily have a lot in common with that.
Right. No, I feel you. So this is another thing too. Like I find that I am much more like tolerant of like a shitty situation than some other people.
Oh yeah.
like there's some guys who are like doing well, but like it's not good enough for them. And like that doesn't kick in for me until like I'm approaching a panic moment.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm like happy. I'm happy, dude. Like whatever. Like, and I'm always kind of like, it's easy to sort of think about what could I be doing differently? How could I be more successful? What's wrong with me? Like, what are my flaws that I can't overcome?
Sure.
And then some days I'm like, well, I can overcome it. Mind over matter.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like this circle. It's like kind of a toxic circle.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like human consciousness. I think. I mean, I don't know psychology well enough, but I have a similar thing where ebbs and flows of like both positivity and I'm going to take on the world, and then others where I'm like, think I might just give up right now. I'm susceptible to this stuff as it is in terms of like wild mood swings, depression, and thinking really low of myself. So that certainly didn't help. It also like coincided with my wife having a miscarriage, and like, so it was like all around this whole, we had it together. She physically had it, but like, you know, it happened around, I want to, it's interesting because it's funny to talk about this with dudes.
I can't help but smile hearing you say that.
Of
way,
course.
you know?
Well, because it's interesting, dude. I got into an argument with like 3 fucking 23-year-old white women, like 2 days after it happened, because I tried to talk about it on stage, and granted it wasn't in a funny place, but I had just mentioned it, like didn't even get to a joke or whatever. I just said my wife has experienced a miscarriage, and they're like, and I was like, you dumb cunts. Like, it instantly got so pissed, and I was like, you unreal. This is to the benefit of you that I'm speaking about this openly and candidly. The fact that you react that way is why there's a stigma attached to it, and it's why people don't feel comfortable expressing how they feel when something like this happens. So maybe don't do your little like caviar fucking reel back bullshit, and actually immerse yourself into some real emotion in the moment. And I'm sorry for calling you the C word.
And then you'll hug.
Yeah, but it was a lot of things all at once that kind of were just the perfect storm of emotional destruction. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks. And yeah, again, it was like one of those things where you just have to pick yourself back up and just be like, all right, like that cannot be it. That can't be the one that knocks me down.
Right. Survive those tough moments however you can and hope for a better one.
Yeah, for sure. It's what I mean. You know, and I'm sure you're the exact same way. As I was told I was resilient by a therapist, and it was truly the first time I had ever heard that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of true. And then that gave me an image to battle invisible monsters. Like in my mind, that image of resilience is literally standing like this as a snowstorm is hitting you.
Right.
So that's now in my head coming at me,
There's
and
an
I'm
avalanche
literally
coming
just
at you.
yeah, and I'm pressed against it, fighting the wind.
Yeah. Well, all right. How often do you feel good?
That's a good question.
And Lynch, I want to know your answer
Yeah.
to this too.
Personally or career-wise?
I mean, are you able to separate those things?
Yeah, because personally, it's almost all, I mean, personally, I feel good. Well, not individually. So personally, I feel really good about my life. I love my son so much. I love my wife so much. I have hit the absolute lottery when it comes to like that. My family is another fucking story, but my tight-knit group are like, I am so happy in that crew. My career, there's ebbs and flows. My happiness, what I've realized with comedy is like, you can't attach it to industry stuff, to numbers, to whatever money, like whatever it may be. I get happy when I write new bits. And I'm trying my best to just focus on that. That's what I can create. That's what I can control. Is I can control my output. I have 40 notes already for my next hour.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, and they're all premises. None of them are bits, but I just have ideas because this is what I'm doing. I'm focusing now on the output. Everything else is just, you know, out of my control. I want the chips to fall in a favorable position. If they don't, that's what it is, and I'm going to continue to move forward. So all I can do is just write, and that makes me happy. So right now, on this week, a substantial amount of my time is spent smiling. Last week, I had a really, really awful week. Both familiar, not my tight family, external family. Both with that, career-wise, whatever, just very disorganized, very all over the place. Felt very out of control. So it kind of like, this is not to misuse a term, I guess. It's a bipolar career, you know. So it's hard to gauge that in consistency.
Yeah,
it's kind of, for me, it's week to week.
Same. Yeah. Lynch, how do you feel?
I have to yield to redundancy on a lot of what you said.
Am I making sense right now, or am I just
100%.
saying nothing?
No, you are.
You said a lot of what I was thinking about when G posed the question originally. Ebbs and flows. I'll wake up one morning, 1 week, and just be super confident in like the output, like TikToks or bits that I'm working on, and I'm feeling really excited and confident, and the world is mine. And then the next week, I just feel smaller than like a bug.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just like sad and confused and angry. And I need to work on compartmentalizing that and knowing, you know, like if I try to be resilient as you mentioned, because that's tough. Because when I got into this, I'm pretty green. I started stand up back in April of last year.
Okay.
And
But he's been working with us for a while.
Yeah.
Kind of like transitioning over to the dark side.
Yeah. So, but when I jumped over, I didn't have any peers or any of my friends that I knew already that are like trying to get into the creative space.
Yeah.
So my peers were GIULIO and Francis and
Yeah.
Chris, the other producer that we had. But you know, in the game for a long time. So like people starting at the same level as me, like it's just kind of isolating and you're by yourself. And, you know, in the abundance of resources that we have, like you can look up a tutorial for anything these days. There's so much stuff that it's like, it becomes foggy and you're just like, you just got to figure every single thing out on your own because everybody has their own way to do it.
Yeah.
So I've been just trying to work on when I am having a good week, when I do feel like a god and I'm feeling validated and I'm feeling confident in the reasons why I'm doing what I'm now doing, I need to find a way to like harness that momentum, take advantage of it as long as it lasts, because it is fleeting.
Yeah.
There will be bad and sad weeks, but just try to get the most and milk everything out of those periods of time where like, no, you're feeling pretty good.
Well, I don't know, and this is a TikTok clip that I'm about to quote, but like, I don't know if you've seen that. It's like one of those, you know, dinners for celebrities where they just jerk each other off for 6 minutes around a circular table. And it was Tom Hanks talking about like, he's like, this too shall pass, right? Which everybody has heard that, of course, but he was talking about it in both the positive and the negative. He's like, you don't have enough money, you're struggling, this too shall pass. He's like, you on top of the world, your movie's #1, this too shall pass. Like, so all of this stuff is, we're more or less trying our best to like grab a fucking feeling out of the air while it's doing 200 miles per hour and hold on to it as much as humanly, for as long as possible. But you can't. You know, it is meant to fly out. I do think that social media is a huge reason for why our ebbs and flows are quicker than they used to. I think the rebound time used to, or the ebb used to last for maybe a month, and then the flow would be like for a week or a couple days, and then the ebb and whatever. But now, like you said, everything is so fast, everything is so available that you do feel somewhat paralyzed at times, and because of that, you're more prone to drastic, you know, changes of emotion.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'll have a video that does super well, and I'm like, oh my god, the algorithm loves me right now. You got to come up with another really unique creative idea, and then you dedicate an entire day. You clean your slate, you cancel all appointments, you're not seeing anybody. You say to yourself, I'm going to bang out and bank a ton of clips today. And then you sit down and then you can't think of a goddamn thing to do.
Yeah.
Because you put so much pressure on yourself to execute. As opposed to when you made that video that originally went viral, you were just goofing around, or the thought just flowed through you in a creative spark of an idea in which you just naturally let it play out and it worked out. And then you apply pressure because you feel like the iron's hot and you need to strike. You need to grab onto that thing that you should just let go. And
just a heads up, that's not a natural impulse. That impulse has been drilled into your fucking head by the algorithm and by the notifications that these apps intentionally send to get your brain hooked like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I couldn't empathize more, dude, because it's tough. We have basically been like we're lab rats for this entire thing, and who knows if in 100 years all this will be banned or less. But we are a generation of people who are more or less, we're being manipulated by a digital drug, and it's interesting to watch how society is as full-blown addicts across the board.
Right. No, it's true, dude. I have a couple of things like going for me in this department. I've like done so much bizarre travel that I have a good, I'm able to tap into.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynch. I'm able to tap into like recent memories of places where people's lives were like really difficult. So I'm like, I'm like, okay, like think about how like solid those people, like a lot of those people's are still. Maybe that's not the thing that is helpful there, but like they're able to be happy and their lives are much more difficult. Like, and objectively more difficult. It's not even some shit where I don't realize that the life I live is actually shittier than theirs because they have good family and better values and all that aside, like corrupt governments, no resources, like not as good as a first world existence.
I think back to that a lot, like about to my trip in Bali for my honeymoon, because we had one thing where we did something of God. It was like a whole ceremony where we did like a prayer. We went to this thing, a parade. We got it, and these people took us into their homes. Their homes looked like a kid fort built them, like out of like, you know, bricks put together. Half of them like look broken down. Like it's crazy. They have nothing, but they were bringing us in and like giving us food, all this stuff, and they were so kind and welcoming. And again, facing tangible adversity, adversity directly in their face. They don't have a clean floor to live on.
Right.
And then, yeah, I try my very best to go back to that as well and just, again, consider the humanity and smiles that they were able to have in the face of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not, I don't have it too bad.
Yeah.
That
God
is-
damn it. I got 200 likes on my most recent reel. I may as well be a third world poor person.
Right. Yeah. Like you have a baseline of a quality of life that is better than maybe some of those people,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So there's that.
Which
but-
again, I don't know if this actually makes you feel worse, because that makes me feel worse sometimes. Is sometimes when I think about how not hard my life is, it makes me feel even less capable.
Well, dude,
because
but your life is hard though.
I know, but like compare to spare, whatever. Subjectively, everybody's life is difficult to them.
Right.
You know, it is what it is. But grand scheme of things, of course, you are able to kind of, you know, zoom out and see what it is. So that on an occasion when my brain is working very overdrive in self-hatred mode, that can also then be a thing that I flip on myself where I'm just like, I'm not even like in a tough spot.
Yeah, you're like, that's interesting. Yeah, that just turns into you fucking ungrateful piece of shit. Yeah, dude, even if it's, you know, any little sort of thing like that to be able to latch onto can be very helpful in those kind of moments where I'm like, all right, well, you know, at least if I have a daughter, she'll be able to choose what she wants to do.
Yeah.
She'll have a wider,
As long as she lives in New York.
she'll have, Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, if that sheds
that.
a light on anything, dude, the simple fact, my wife had a miscarriage and she had to take the abortion pill to flush everything, not to get too TMI. But basically, if we lived in fucking Texas, we would have had to fly to New York to do that.
Wow.
And the baby had already passed.
Wow.
Like that's one of those moments where you're like, God damn, man, that's intense.
Damn.
Why do I all of a sudden care about this?
Wow, dude, no, that's crazy. No,
Yeah.
for sure. And I'm sure that puts that kind of stuff into perspective for sure, like from a family planning perspective. So anyway, yeah, if anybody's listening, even just watching some like gnarly ass documentary can really make you grateful for your own life. We've talked about this on the show before, but on Delta, there's this documentary that you maybe have even seen because I know you're traveling around.
Yeah.
It's about like baseball players who try to, basically they're Cuban and they try to become Major League Baseball.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Dude, it's amazing. I don't even remember what it's called.
I watched it too. Yeah.
What the fuck was it called? Anyway, we're going to plug this again because it's so good. But just watching what these guys had to go through, it's like, damn, that is fucking nuts.
Well, I mean, they're like hitting bottle caps with broomsticks.
Dude, no, but you got to watch this doc, bro.
It's crazy,
Yeah,
dude.
even
I've
like
seen,
that.
you know, some of the TikTok or whatever when they show like how they work on their mechanics in places that do not have modern facilities.
Right,
and they're literally whipping drop off the table curveballs
That's
with
crazy.
beer caps, and they're hitting with like twigs, and they're taking it barrel of the twig out.
That's
It's
wild.
crazy.
The Last Out.
The Last Out.
About
it's
3
called.
Cuban players that go over to Costa Rica so that they can make it to the MLB.
Oh, that's cool. I'll
It's
check
cool.
that out
It's
for
a
sure.
It's a good watch. But anyway, yeah, because look, like, and that's why vacation can be such a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Like, you get that moment to have perspective and take a look at your life from the outside as opposed to living the nightmare that it is for all of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the nightmare is not even my life. The nightmare is my brain. Like that's the true Tim Burton presents, like, you know, like, fucking horror film.
That's a dark image. right
Yeah,
there.
it's just the black branches reaching into my brain. That's the tough spot. Is like everything outside of here seems to be operating without my help.
No, dude.
You paint a dark picture.
Do I?
I visualize it, yeah.
No, but it's true. I mean, look,
It is very true.
10 years
I'm
ago,
an
right?
Irishman.
A lot of the things that you're doing now, I bet, that if 10 years ago, like I for me, this is specifically true. I'm not going to speak for you, but let me know what you think. But like, I was like, as long as by XYZ time, I've done this, and this, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And I've done most of those things and far from this, you know, promised land of happiness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I wonder, it's like, does that ever end? like you have a milestone, it feels really good, but then you get used to it, and now suddenly you're starting from zero again.
Yeah.
And like building on it. I actually am truly wondering, I'm like, when does that end?
So I'll remind me I have a second point on this, because one of those things is like I've set all these goals for myself starting comedy and I haven't hit one of them. I'm not even saying that to be funny. I'm being dead serious. So I wanted Montreal. I never got Montreal New Faces. I wanted a late night set. I never got a late night set. I wanted a Comedy Central set. I never got a Comedy Central set. I wanted a half hour. Never got a half hour. Every single thing that I've done. And I'm still up. I'm right there with everybody who has done all of those things, if not beyond. I know a bunch of people that have done a half hour that aren't even on the fucking road because they don't sell 3 tickets in a major market. So I've still managed to keep this going, but that's also an important thing to realize is recalibrate your expectations, recalibrate your goals when certain opportunities are missed, because I missed 100% of my goals and have still made it beyond where I thought was possible for myself in this career. And that's a weird thing. It's
cool.
And second point is that Christian Finnegan, when we first started in 2008, Christian Finnegan was on The Real World on Chappelle's show, which was one of the iconic sketches. Unreal. And he was the main part, very funny part of it, alongside Charlie Murphy. Him had like the big parts in that. And so I remember meeting Christian at Broadway Comedy Club and being like, you made it, dude. Like I think I literally said that to him. I was like, so what's it like? Like you made it. Like assuming that making it, you like kind of go through the field of dream hedges, right, and then there's just every working comedian back there, and
right,
you all high five,
right,
and are like, well, aren't they losers still playing
exactly
back there? But he looked at me and was like, listen, he's like, one thing that I wish somebody told me, and I'm going to tell you, he's like, every comedian that you meet that is at a level wants to get to the next level. He's like, so what you think I've made it, I'm not happy. I want to get to the next level. I'm not selling enough. I'm not on this show. I'm not a main character. I'm not this. He's like, so every level, including, and at the time Louis was the thing, he's like, Louis wants to get to the next level. Like everybody does. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting thing to consider, where it's like, and that's part of the fun of comedy, where not only is it not going to change, that will never go away, but I think that's the point. Because I think if it did go away, then this whole pursuit would be bullshit. And the whole thing that kept me in it is I can't find what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for something. I don't even know what I'm looking for, but I'm going to create until I get there. And I'm assuming I'm going to die before I find it. And that's fine by me, because I've done all of this creating and self-expression to try to find a thing that probably doesn't exist in the first place. And that mentality is what's going to keep me working.
Right. Yeah. Wow. I like it, bro. I like it. It's funny. I was thinking about your milestones. I'm like, thank God none of those were my goals, because I didn't get any of those either.
Yeah, right.
I'm 0 for 4 on all of those.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I never really had big, and to be honest, I was always looking for an excuse not to be pursuing stand-up, because I just kind of like lacked belief, I guess.
Sure.
I was just kind of like, all right, like all these other things are things that you can do with, like, you can get lucky in the rest of those things. Right. But stand-up just seems so hard, so daunting. Like, will you ever be able to do it? And over time, just none of these other things really panned out, and stand-up was the only thing that I could like actively pursue every day. Yeah. So it just turned into, now probably at this exact moment, the pillar of my business. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and isn't that a good lesson for anybody out there looking to do anything? Is keep one plate spinning no matter what. Your cornerstone plate, whatever you branch out and build from, whatever your spider webs come out of, keep that plate spinning no matter what. Because in the same way that I got done with MTV, Cosmo, all that shit, and recognized that I didn't have a pot to piss in or a foot to stand on, I recognized that I needed a foundation. Bill Burr says it all the time. He's like, they can't fire me from a strip mall, dude. Like, and it's true. It's like, no matter what, he has comedy. No matter what he gets fired from, doesn't get audition-wise, he has stand-up that will pay the bills. And it's the same exact way for us, where it's like this thing that we largely maybe didn't think would pan out, or is the most difficult thing we do. Because of it, we've maintained an ability to continue to pursue a career.
Right.
That's awesome.
Well, let me ask you this though, bro. I mean, it seems to me that things are going pretty well for you right now. Right. Yeah. And in a new and exciting way. So it's like, you are now hosting this big show. Yeah. I'm assuming you're making some decent money. Yeah. I wonder what the result has been on the road. Like, is it
here and there places?
Have you seen it, type of thing. So in the moment, are you feeling pretty good and optimistic or?
Yeah, I am. But again, like my brain is a nightmare, so it's able to take the most positive things and jujitsu it into a negative. So yeah, I mean, I'm working with one of my best friends. That is above board a positive. It's hard to transition into a new gig. That's tough. It's also hard with a new fan base that you were a part of but weren't an everyday part of to get used to you.
And they're criticizing you and shit.
Yeah, because I'm not a former co-host that he used to have. That
Cannon's
broke up.
a simp.
Exactly, and it's like I'm not even like involved in the old show, and like, but I get comparison to the old co-host, and it's like I get it, guys. I had a tough time with my parents' divorce too, but like I'm not the new wife. I'm just coming in. I'm just doing something. I'm not whatever. So that again, this is all my own doing because if I allow myself to take it in, then I'm kind of hurt. I'm more digitally cutting myself than anything. It's like those people's comments should be irrelevant to me.
Right.
They're not like, I'm not supposed to even be in that space. Right. YouTube commentary is for YouTube commenters. Right. I'm not supposed to be even auditing that. That's conversation for them. Right. I just put it out and then that's what it is. But I've allowed that to kind of sink in.
You end up seeing some.
Seeing some.
And look, and agreed. Like, I would say almost every comment, most negative comments about me, I don't even feel it. Mm-hmm. But every once in a while, they'll hit one of your insecurities. They'll strike that fucking nerve, and it'll really make you feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, I believe all of them, but I really do. 100% of them, the good ones, I'm like, you don't know anything. I'm
funny.
like, oh, what are you? You have terrible taste in comedy. And then the bad ones, I'm like, well, that's what I think of myself.
Right,
you must see me.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah. It's all. I mean, I'm painting a bleak picture, but I'm getting better at it, and I'm also on the other end for now. I'm sure I'll take another dip back into that bowl at some point, but I am on the other side of that, and I'm learning to just not involve myself, create enough boundary where I can then go about my job in a healthy way, because that doesn't even let me write. Like I was sucking at comedy because I was allowing some of the comments or whatever like input to get to me. So I was like not having great sets. I was just like kind of fumbling with jokes, and like I just wasn't in a good spot. And then as soon as those clouds part and I start focusing on the writing and all this stuff and organizing things, and I got my special ready, and then I'm ready to develop the next one and all this stuff, then I feel productive, and then I feel at a place where I can kind of, attack as opposed to just take abuse from myself.
Totally. And I'll say this, I really enjoy drinking. Mm-hmm. I really do.
Same.
And I know you don't really drink, right?
I don't. 5 years. Yeah, no drinking.
Congrats.
I take edibles and mushrooms. So
right.
I'm not like.
Well, no, but it sounds like it's been a thing that's been helpful for you, and I know you've kind of talked about it before. Yes. Not news to me, but yeah, I will say that I struggle to feel good if I'm not at my peak energy and focus level, because I'm like, okay, like there's a place you'd like to be, right? Broadly speaking, like we've said, will I ever get there? I don't know.
Sure.
But I'm convinced that I know where it is.
Yeah.
So let's just keep chasing, even though it's going to keep moving farther down. But if I'm able to do that actively and energetically, and if I'm able to do the things that I set out to do, I generally feel good.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not able to, I feel really shitty. Yeah. And if I am to go too hard in a not calculated enough way, then it will like bleed over into my week, and it'll make me feel really terrible.
Oh yeah.
So I think I'm unfortunately at a place where if I want to have a big night of drinking, like I literally need to have nothing to do at all the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally nothing.
I think that's just like adulthood.
Yeah.
Like, I really do. I don't think there's people, unless they just have no responsibility, that can just kind of have it keep going. You know, like Doug Stanhope, I used to want to be him. I love drinking, I love comedy, and I love that like kind of outlaw life, and also his material, and just I love that like kind of counterculture type dude. I really strive to be that, but then you quickly realize you're like, oh, I don't have the constitution for that. That's a Mickey Mantle gene, or like a genetic anomaly that some people have that I don't. I am not a alcoholic wonderkin. I can't just show up and do it. So it's like, you have to take it where it is. And for me, my wife got pregnant, and that's why I stopped, because I did it in solidarity.
You have alcoholism in your family too, right?
Totally, yeah. Which is why I didn't start until after, or after I stopped playing basketball, junior year of college.
Interesting.
Yeah, I still was under the delusion that I was gonna play overseas or some horseshit, and it was not happening.
Mike Hanna, Maccabi Tel Aviv, dude.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, me and Jimmer Fredette on the FIBA 3x3 team.
Jimmer, dude.
He's still nasty, man.
Unreal.
Yeah, he has buckets. He scores like 60 often.
Really?
Oh, yeah, he's like a Stefan Marbury level god in China.
That's sick.
Yeah,
dude.
he's as big as a dragon out there.
That's sick.
What were we talking about?
Drinking. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I stopped in solidarity with my wife with all intentions of picking it back up, like once my son got here. But once you zoom out and you gain some perspective on things, it was very clear how I was drinking, and I love drinking. Still wouldn't tell anybody else not to drink.
Right.
The way I love drinking is not conducive for me to be, 1, a father, 2, a father and a comedian, 3, a comedian. Like, I couldn't do literally any of the, and then a husband. So add that. It's like all those things. I'd have to pick like an 1/8 of each.
Right.
To be able to do any of it. Like, I couldn't fully invest in any of it. So just with that, and my swings of depression were far less drastic. My rebound time was much quicker. Like, believe it, this is me on All Sunshines and Rainbows. It's like I've rebounded nicely since my depression days. But that for me, and it was like it would spiral me out for a couple days in a row where I couldn't. Because I would get hardcore anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, after drinking real heavy. That stuff, it really weighed on me. And then then I would drink for shows and shit. And I'm like, I'm not getting better. I'm just kind of doing it. Right.
And that is a point that I wanted to make too, which is like, years of kind of doing that, and you're drinking too much, and then you can show up and like do what you need to do, but you don't have the energy to take steps forward.
Exactly.
You just have the energy to function with what you've done to that moment, and you're not pushing anything. To get through it.
Dude,
That's
the
not
amount
a good place to be in.
The amount of sets where I was like looking at myself in the mirror beforehand, just be like, just get through it. Literally get through it, and then being on stage and be like, so the fuck is this, guys? They're like, what? I'm like, all right.
What are you guys are doing?
That was just sentence. I fell off a stage
Really?
on the Upper East Side. Do you remember Sam Bednar's?
Yeah.
Female comic.
Sam
Very funny.
Jama.
I think she lives in New Orleans now. She used to run this really great show. I forget, maybe Manny's or something
I did
like
that show.
Up on like 92nd.
Sean Lynch.
Yes. Yeah. Up
I did
there.
that show.
And I was killing. Like, just having a great set. I was hammered. It was one of those shows where you're just like, it's almost like the audience is a drunk extension of you. Like, you just feel that good. I think I also hit Shatter for the first time in my life that night. So I was like, just in the cosmos.
What's Shatter?
Shatter is a concentrated THC.
Okay.
So it's like, it was in a vape pen, which at the time, nobody had
was like
those.
the new thing.
New thing.
The
And I was like,
cartridge.
what the
Got
fuck?
it.
So I remember one thing of being on stage and like putting like way too much of a this into it, and I just fell into the front row. Like, just full took out the front row of the show, and I just like got up and they were like, I was like, just ruined everything.
Damn, I remember that show, bro.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We wrap up with
Some scenarios?
a question. Yeah,
Let's do it.
I have one. So we sometimes do this segment called "Are You a Turkey?"
Okay.
And basically, we take a scenario and we weigh out whether or not a particular behavior would be viewed as turkey behavior. Can you define
As a
it?
negative. Just being a fucking
Yeah, you're being a
tool
dork.
bag.
Total
Cool.
turkey.
Yeah, total
I'm
turkey.
not a chicken. You're a turkey.
Correct.
That kind of thing.
Correct.
All right. So the one that I posed to you two today is, all right, hypothetically, let's say you go to a Middle Eastern restaurant and you sit at the bar section and you order baba ganoush and it comes with a side of pita.
Sure.
You're enjoying that. You just got started. Then the bartenders are going around being like, it's International Bartenders Day. It's International Bartenders Day. Who wants free tequila? People around you are all getting tequila shots. Let's say you do get a tequila shot or you get, a tea. And you all go up. You all go up to cheers because it's International Bartenders Day.
Yeah.
Now, the bartender's tequila drips out on the clank and falls onto your pita bread.
Sure.
But no one noticed but you.
Yeah.
Is it a turkey move to call over the server or tell the waiter that you would like a replacement pita?
How big's the splash?
I'd say like
Is it covering
it's
like
covering like
40% of the pita?
an eighth of the pita.
Okay.
Of the total pita.
Of all pita.
Oh, of all pita.
Of all pita. It's one pita, so all pita.
Okay.
1/8.
Interesting. Do you send it back? I have never once sent back a thing. I'm Irish. I've been told never to complain because nobody cares. So I personally would just, even sober, I'd probably just lick it up and apologize that it spilled on my pita.
Well, it has added sort of significance for a sober person.
Yeah.
Well, a person who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
But Lynch, this is a very good one, by the way.
Thanks.
I like it.
And yeah, I don't think it changes anything. Like getting it on there, whether or not you're sober, obviously. I believe that you are a turkey if you ask for more pita there, because such a positive thing has just unfolded. You just like rip half the pita and leave the other half and don't eat it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it is a real like, what is it? Wet towel or wet blanket move to just be
What is
like. That's like being a wet blanket, like just being a bummer, putting a little bit of a bummer into a great situation, because like you said, everybody's fired up, boom, boom. It's like, hey, international, it's like, hey, bartender, I love you. Want to earn that money? Get me some more fucking pita.
But does it need to be a bummer to ask? Because it's just pita.
It's
not like your full entree. Like it's
Right.
not the skewers of chicken. It's just the vehicle that you use to eat your baba ganoush.
I think it also depends on what kind of pita are we talking. Like, is this homemade? Like at the cellar has like really unreal pita, and it takes 10 minutes for them to make, like 10 to 15 minutes for them to make it. So they make it all from scratch. But like, is it that? Because then that could be a little bit of a more hardship to make, but it's worth it because it tastes that good.
Right.
It's like, you got to put away all these things. Or if it's just shit pita, then you're like, well, I'm a dickhead for even ordering this in the first place.
Well, this is what you could do. You could take the half of the pita that has been tainted by the tequila. You can hide it somehow. You then eat all of the pita that is existing, and you just ask for more pita without saying why you're asking for more pita. You can avoid turkeydom in that fashion.
That's the move. That is the only answer.
It's pretty good.
That's a great answer.
Or you can mutilate the part when it's obvious that it's like not going to be eaten. You're like, can you get some more pita?
And you know what? To hide it, just as an extra fuck you to the bartenders, throw it in the ice bin.
I can't do
Just reach over the bar, throw it right in the ice bin.
I think if anything gets into the ice bin, you have to dump the ice bin completely.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Oh my God. I like when I was waiting tables, I like immediately shattered a piece of glass. They had to like deep clean the whole thing. Like it wasn't. Yeah, it was such a hard.
You have to like evacuate the building.
It was a huge problem when I did that.
Dude, unbelievable. Well, Mr. Cannon, happy to have been co-workers for this long. Hopefully we will continue for many years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, isn't that part of the fun, right? Like you get into it and you see people and people tell you that you won't see a lot of the people that you started with, and then 15 years pass and you truly only see about 4 or 5 people that you started with. And then you kind of, but it's an immediate fraternity in the sense that like lifelong bond.
100%.
We've gone through this thing together for this long, are going to continue to do it, run into each other, run in the same circles. And what's better than that, man?
Dude.
I love it. I'm a huge proponent of lifelong friendship. So
Love it.
Love it.
Excellent.
That's a good
Likewise. So give us some plugs, and we'll let you go on your merry way.
April 6th, that's the big one. April 6th, New York Comedy Club in Stamford, Connecticut. If you're there, tickets are at MikeCannonComedy.com. I think we're already like 65-70% sold for both shows because Chris DiStefano is going to be on it too, so he's doing the heavy lifting. MikeCannonComedy.com for those tickets. Chrissy Chaos Pod every Monday, and then I have a bunch of specials on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeCannonComedy, and thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Great
and
to meet you.
congrats on the new incarnation. I have not seen you do it since then, and I love what you guys are doing.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Check out Mike. Check out Lynch. Oops Podcast. Check us out. All that shit. Goodbye.